The 2025 AFC playoff bracket is officially set, and the Kansas City Chiefs are going to sit and watch during wildcard weekend to find out who they will play in the divisional round of the playoffs. In this video, we are going to go over a couple of potential matchups and also talk about the teams that you guys want the Chiefs to face in that divisional round of the playoffs. You guys are listening to the KC Sports Report. I'm your host, Michael Darcy. I'm a local Kansas City-based content creator who covers this Chiefs team on a daily basis. And the best way you guys can show support is by hitting the like button on this video and subscribing for more daily Chiefs coverage. Now, with that being said, let's dive into the main topic of this video, and that's going over a couple of potential playoff matchups the Chiefs could see in the divisional round of the playoffs. So just looking ahead at the bracket right here, the Denver Broncos will play the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. That is the 2-7 matchup. The Baltimore Ravens will face off against the Pittsburgh Steelers. We have a little AFC North action. And the Chargers will play the Texans in Houston. Again, the lowest seed that advances, the Chiefs will play in the divisional round. So if the Broncos hypothetically were able to go into Buffalo and upset the Bills, the Broncos would be coming to Kansas City next weekend for the divisional round of the playoffs. Now, that upset does seem unlikely, but there are plenty of teams on this list that could pull off an unlikely upset to play the Chiefs next weekend. And I'm just looking at it right here. I know the Steelers have been bad. The Steelers have lost, I think, their last 4 games. They lost to the Eagles. They lost to the Chiefs. They lost to the Bengals in their final game of the season. They've either lost 3 or 4 of their last 5 games. And so this team is very beatable, but they're also playing Baltimore. And Baltimore is a divisional rival, a team that they beat early on in the season. And listen, divisional matchups are always tough. It is tough to beat a team 3 times in the season. And so maybe Pittsburgh could pull off a little magic and beat the Baltimore Ravens in the wild card round. But also looking ahead, the Chargers and the Texans, that's a good game because the Texans at this point in time are pretty battered and bruised, and they don't really have a very good roster remaining, while the Chargers are getting healthier, and they're also playing their best football. So there's a good chance that we see any number of these teams in the divisional round. And I actually asked you guys this morning what you think the best playoff matchup is and the most likely playoff matchup is. And this is what you guys said. Again, this is according to the poll from you guys. Over 500 people voted on this. And so I wanted to read it off. 37% of you think the Houston Texans are the best playoff matchup for the Chiefs, followed by the Steelers at, I believe, I can't really see it. They are 22%. The Chargers are 26%. And the Denver Broncos are 15%. So actually, the majority of you do not want to see Denver in the divisional round. And I understand that line of thinking because, listen, guys, it is tough to play divisional opponents 3 times in a season. I still think the Chiefs would win, but going over all of those teams, I think if the Broncos go into Buffalo and beat the Bills, I don't really want to go out of my way to play the Denver Broncos if we could avoid that. In my opinion, I think the best matchup for the Chiefs would probably be the Houston Texans, followed by the Pittsburgh Steelers. I look at the Texans and I see a team that is just reeling. They lost Tank Dell in that game at Arrowhead. He's done for probably multiple seasons. They don't really have a lot of guys left. And you saw Patrick Mahomes on one ankle shred that defense. That defense that is headlined by a great pass rush of Will Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter. The Chiefs didn't have any problems against that team. So I'd probably say that Houston is the most favorable matchup, followed by the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers have lost a lot of games recently. The Chiefs just beat them on Christmas by more than 2 touchdowns. They won 19 points. That is a very favorable matchup for this Chiefs team. The Steelers would have to come to Arrowhead. That offense is basically non-existent. They just cannot, move the ball up and down the field. And if they do, they're probably not going to turn it into points. And so I think that the Steelers are probably the number 2 team that I would want to see, followed by, just looking at it, probably followed by the Chargers. I think the Chargers we match up with better on paper, but also I'm not really scared of Denver either, because while Bo Nix did beat the Chiefs in an ugly game in Week 18, that was a playoff game for them. They needed to win that game to get into the dance, and so I'm not really scared of Bo Nix coming to Arrowhead in the divisional round of the playoffs with this Chiefs team coming off of 24 days of rest, and they have all the time in the world to prepare for this Broncos team. They just saw them with their backups. I don't think that matchup would go well for Denver the second time, because they emptied their playbook in that Week 18 game to get into the playoffs. And so I don't think that they're really a big threat. But if we're just going down a list of favorable playoff matchups, I would say the Houston Texans are number one. I would agree with the majority of the people that voted on my poll. Again, you guys can go vote on that poll. It's in the community tab. And let me know down below in the comment section what you think is the best playoff matchup for the Chiefs. Because, listen, the Chiefs aren't scared of anybody. I don't want to make it seem like the Chiefs are terrified of playing, the Houston Texans, or they're terrified of playing the Broncos because they just got blown out by, the starters when we were just playing our backups. I don't want to make it seem like any one of these teams is a scary threat for the Chiefs. The Chiefs are the back-to-back reigning and defending Super Bowl champions. They don't fear any of these teams. Even if Cincinnati got in, we were not going to fear the Bengals. But I do think that if we're just looking at the best possible path to the Super Bowl, if you could play Houston in round one, if they were able to, let's just say that Houston ended up beating the Chargers, and the teams with the better seed end up winning, like Buffalo and Baltimore, that means that you would play the Houston Texans in the divisional round, and you just played them in December. And so I think, again, that's a favorable matchup for the Chiefs. I don't think that C.J. Stroud and that banged-up roster could come into Arrowhead in the playoffs and beat this team, this well-rested Chiefs team. And so I think that that's probably the best matchup for this team. But also, I would love Pittsburgh. I think that either Houston or Pittsburgh is going to be a pretty good matchup for both, the Chargers and the Ravens. I just don't think that those two teams really have anything left in the tank at this point in the season. Ever since the clock turned to November, the Texans and the Steelers have been on the steady decline. But guys, before we go any further, I want to give a shout out to the sponsors of this channel all football season long.
Welcome to the Rice Real Estate Group, Kansas City's premier partner in real estate. Whether you're buying, selling, or investing, you will receive a tailored experience designed just for you. Specializing in residential, commercial, and investment properties, the dedicated team over at the Rice Real Estate Group helps guide you through every transaction, including navigating those short, complex sales. With a commitment to personal one-on-one service, they will ensure that you are supported every step of the way. You can achieve your goals with expertise, care, and a customized approach that truly makes a difference. Ready to make your next move? The Rice Real Estate Group is here to make it happen. For more information, call 816-819-9333. The Hollywood Casino at Kansas Speedway is the place to be. With over 1,500 slot machines, 35 table games, 4 restaurants, and a new ESPN Bet sportsbook, there are plenty of ways to find your fun. For more chances to win, follow them on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and X. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Special shout out to the sponsors that support this channel all football season long. But getting back into the video, I really do think that regardless of whoever the Chiefs play in the divisional round, they are going to be the heavy favorites. This is a Chiefs team that I would argue is probably the best team in the dynasty. I mean, that defense is legit. You saw all of the injuries the Chiefs suffered this season, and it didn't matter. The Chiefs still found a way to finish 15-2, which is the best record in their franchise's history. And so I'm not scared of any one of these teams. I know I've heard people talk about Baltimore, talk about Buffalo. I do not think that when push comes to shove in an important playoff game at Arrowhead Stadium, the Chiefs are going to lose to any one of these teams. Like, there's some good teams in the AFC. I would argue that whoever gets through the AFC is probably going to go win the Super Bowl, but I just don't trust any of these teams besides the Kansas City Chiefs to get it done when it truly matters. And so talking about a potential playoff matchup and a potential playoff path, if we could play the Houston Texans in the divisional round or the Pittsburgh Steelers in the divisional round, and then only have to play one of Baltimore or Buffalo that are likely going to have to play each other to get into the playoffs, that is a very favorable path for this Chiefs team. Listen, they could beat Buffalo. They could beat Baltimore in the same stretch. They've proven that before. They did it last year. But it's all about the easiest path to the Super Bowl, the easiest path to New Orleans. And I think that only having to play one of those two teams, it works out really well for this Chiefs team. And so again, guys, I want to hear from you guys in the comment section below. What do you think is the best playoff matchup? Do you think it's Houston? Do you think it's the Chargers? Do you think it's the Broncos? Do you think that it is the Chargers or the Texans? I think that if we boil it down, the Chiefs would rather play teams that aren't in their own division. Like the Chargers and the Broncos would just present more of a challenge because they play in the same division. They're very familiar with this Chiefs team. But at the same time, we've played Buffalo, we've played Baltimore in the playoffs multiple years now. And so they're probably pretty familiar with this Chiefs team as well. But it's also just different when you have to play them twice a year and then playing them a third time. Anything could happen. And we've seen the losses to divisional opponents in the playoffs. I'd like to get away from that. I don't want my buddies on the AFC West roundtable giving me a lot of crap through the offseason if the Chiefs somehow aren't able to pull that off. So Chiefs Kingdom, again, I want to hear from you guys down in the comment section below. What do you think is the best playoff matchup? And what do you think is the most realistic playoff matchup? Because we've talked a lot about, the hopes and dreams of playing either the Texans or the Steelers. In all likelihood, I think the Chiefs will probably host the Chargers in that divisional round. I think that the Chargers are going to go into Houston, beat the Texans, and I think that, Baltimore is going to take care of the Steelers at home. I just don't trust Pittsburgh, and I don't trust Houston at this point in the season. So in all likelihood, it will be Chiefs-Chargers in the AFC divisional round, which should be a pretty fantastic game. So Chiefs Kingdom, that is all I have for this video. If you guys enjoyed it, hit that like button and subscribe for more of the best daily Chiefs content on YouTube. I've been giving you guys content each and every single day, and the best way you guys can show support is by subscribing and hitting the like button on this video. It greatly helps out the YouTube algorithm. Until next time, guys, thank you for watching this video, and as always, go Chiefs.